I had set it right up into provincials last year, and I finally got hit. This young fella hit me in the shin, and it frickin' hurt. Like, it was so bad. But it broke the streak, because I literally said, like, in 20 years, I don't remember getting hit.
Well,
and so if that rings true, if your theory on this is correct, that they don't hit the good guys, Hilly, you must be an asshole. Because you get hit more than anyone I know.
How many times have I hit you, Hilly? I bet you.
Well, I was just going to say, I know one possible reason why you probably didn't get hit in return. You hit me in Newfoundland in 2007, and I would have physically been unable to hit you, because I could barely walk the fucking first, let alone go out and pitch.
Ladies man, but I'm unready now. For courting 6 girls all at once, they use me. My mother said it was naughty, but I said if it's naughty, sure it's also very nice.
And the Lolly drops his glove, grabs Tom. The benches are clearing.
Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly is brought to you by CoolBet. If you got a few extra bucks rattling around in your arse pocket, CoolBet Sportsbook will double your first deposit up to $200 when you use the bonus code DUSTUP. Head over to coolbet.com and get in on the fastest growing entertainment sector in the world. That bonus code again is DUSTUP, one word, all capital letters, DUSTUP. Welcome back, folks. Episode 19 of Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly. And Hilly, I think I say it every time we come on to introduce one of these. What a friggin' banger we got tonight with Dean Holoien coming on. Buddy.
Yes, buddy. Yeah, another Hall of Famer, good old Sask boy. One of the best pitcher hitters to ever play. He's had an illustrious playing career, and he's transitioned into a coaching career, and I'm sure he got lots of great stories. He's a good storyteller, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's weird when you look at him, right? Because he's one of the most intimidating men you could ever see. But then you get to play alongside him. You see, he is fierce. He is intimidating, but he's one of the all-around nicest guys you'd ever meet on or off a ball field. And what he brings to the table of any team that he's been a part of, and I'm sure it's the same thing in his coaching career, and we've played with him in that regard as well. Just an all-around beauty in the game, and our listeners are in for a treat with this one.
Yep, just a super teammate. He's first one off the bench, always got your back, throws the ball 100 miles an hour. That helps, and he's just funny guy, man.
Yeah, he's just an all-around beauty. Let's get into it. Dean Holoien. Hilly, we got him on. We got Deano Holoien on finally. I'm excited about this one. Deano, what's happening?
Hey, fellas.
Hey, buddy. What's up, Deano?
Oh, so good to see you. So good to see you, boys. Hey, I got a question, though. You were, just before we got going, you were talking to 2 fellas that I can't see on the screen. Are they kind of like Elf on a Shelf? Like, where are the boys there?
They're there.
You're looking up, and then they're talking, but I can't see them.
Throw yourself on there, boys. Let Deano have a look at the 2 good-looking young fellas back here. This is Lucas and Nick.
The technical masters. Hey, boys. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hey, we're lucky to have those boys. Hey, I guess that's our version of Donnie, right? Except the boys aren't on air. But I remember when I called you first,
running the show, yeah.
Right? When we talked about doing this podcast, I picked up the phone because I was a guest on your show. Hilly he's not really at that elite status to make the guest list.
He's
yet.
So close, though. He's so close.
Another couple of years, another couple of those 7th inning hits.
One of these days.
But I picked up the phone, gave you a call, and you guys have been great. All of you guys, with giving just some tidbits, some pointers, what you guys learned. We use those little tricks on the Zoom that you taught me, and it's
nice.
It's awesome. So, Hilly, we got another one. We did it with Chris Abbott. We got a guy that's on here, knows the podcast scene. It's a little bit nervous getting a seasoned vet, not only in softball, but the podcast game with Deano here.
Yeah, it's kind of a treat for me. We finally get an elite pitcher who's also an elite hitter.
Oh, Jesus, here we go.
Right?
It's good. But, Hilly, go on. I know where you're going with it. It's going to be a theme, and we talked about it earlier. Let's get right into this whole pitching hitting combo, Deano, because a lot of the pitchers that started off in the game at a young age, you come from a grassroots community in Melford, and a lot of your buddies play, but I'm assuming you started similar to how Hilly did, where pitching, but also batting third. It wasn't at that age where you're a good pitcher, you're getting DP for. But back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was probably more pitching, hitting players out there. And you were really the standard for that. For the guys coming up in our generation, I know the ones that play with you. When you look back on your career, how is the split in your mind from a hitter to a pitcher?
There's a question in there, Lolly. You went for quite a while.
Well, it was at the end. You know, the question mark comes at the end, Deano. It's called context.
Okay, I got you.
Now, before you start with some context.
Okay. Well, prior to myself kind of getting involved in the game, and obviously the stories that I've heard you guys tell on here on your podcast, and Lolly when we had you on ours, and I mean I've heard Hilly's story. We all have the same growing up at the park, watching our dads, and chasing foul balls for your favorite type of candy back at whatever that, and that just seemed to, that was my story, and growing up, we can joke about it, pitcher hitter all we want, but those are the two busiest positions on the field. So if you're a kid and you're a true fan of the game and you're not normally picking out the right fielder unless you know who that is. Maybe it's mom or dad or whatever it is, but the idea is the pitchers and catchers and the hitters, they run the show, and there's a lot of that as you grow up. I want to be a pitcher, I want to be a hitter. I don't know. I joke around with Tosh all the time. We have this kind of running thing whenever we're doing clinics and stuff. It's, who's the better athlete, the pitchers or the infielders and stuff. So I just think it just, it looked like such a cool position to play. My dad pitched and hit, I obviously thought at that age that pitching and hitting was, they're both equal parts of the game to me. I don't know if that was anything different from you, Hilly, but I just kind of got into it, and if you're successful at it, they keep hitting you, right?
Well, so sticking with that. So I mean, you played for some pretty big successful teams over the years, which we'll touch on throughout. Did you have any coaches up along that say, you're not going to hit if you're pitching, or you're not going to DH if you're not pitching, or did you have to have that conversation with the coach saying, listen, I'm hitting in this lineup?
No, I just I think I'm trying to think of the time, but it would definitely be with the national team, and I think that was just made a lot of sense because we had at that time you had so many great hitters, and so that you're going to have somebody DHing or DPing, and your job as a pitcher is to go there and pitch, right? And if I didn't make it as a pitcher, I would have been a hitter, and you don't make it as a hitter. So for me, I was very happy to be have the time I had with the national team, and it wasn't because I was a hitter, right? Literally, it was because I was throwing the ball. So.
All right. Well, here's a non-contextual question. I'll get right to the point with it. All right. It's a big strikeout or a big home run. Which one do you prefer?
Ooh, it's a good question, but I got to say the moment has to dictate that, right?
Yeah, it depends.
Because there's been some pretty amazing times where you give her a little fist pump for a strikeout, or
that's right.
Whatever. But obviously the home runs are a little more exciting, especially when they come at the right time, right? So. I like them both. I don't want to be too, sorry, that's kind of a soft answer for you, but
it is.
I like them both.
Yeah.
And that's,
So how would you, when you get a big strikeout, maybe to end the game, how would you rate the quality of you throwing your glove up in the air to celebrate big victories?
That was a terrible glove toss. You think about all the, the opportunities, and it was a long time coming. You're talking about 2009, and it took a long time to get to that win, and that was just, you bring it up. That's the worst glove toss I think I've ever seen. It was awful.
It was the worst and the best though. Well, because it's funny, because it was you, but we're going to go into some of these big moments. I think tonight it's just going to be more of a conversation than it is going to be going back through everything that you've done, but there's so many cool big moments that you've been a part of, and like you said, that one was a long time coming, especially when you look back at 08 ISC season, how successful that was with the Aspen team that you guys pulled together, the run that you went on. We talked about that game in detail on this podcast. You probably heard Blair Ezekiel's episode where he was talking about trying to throw you off the game. So, but then when we got the suit up with you in that 09 year, and there's so much I want to talk about, not all the moments, but really just what you bring to the table as a teammate and a competitor on the field. But if you just fast forward right to that championship game, and it's you got Adam Folkart on the other end. We had some of the best ball players in the history of the game that were out on that ball field at one time. And under the dark light, probably cake up the ball a little bit, make it a little bit harder to see.
No, not Deano.
But man,
I've heard
you were throwing absolute blinders, right? And it was one of the best championship games. But can you remember back to that last at bat when you're out there with the team you had behind you, the patsies that we were facing? Can you remember that moment and where your head was at?
I sure can. I mean, I had to know, obviously coming on the podcast, I had to kind of remind myself a few things because Tosh is always bugging the heck out of me about my memory and stuff. So, so I had to kind of go through it, and you bring it up, and I that game still feels like it just happened yesterday, and moments like that just seem like, you look back at the year and it's like, oh my God, how many years has it been? But, to me, it's like yesterday. And I remember the feeling when, Marty was out there, he started that game, and, there's been lots of times when you're the reliever and you're the guy that's supposed to come in next or whatever. And you have different feelings about those moments. Like some days I really like sitting on this bench right now and eating sunflower seeds. And then there's days where you just really, really want to be out there somehow. And you don't want to be out there after they've beat up your starter. Right. So, I mean, that's not, you're not just hoping to get out there, you're hoping to win the ball game, but at the same time, you want to have an impact. And we joke all the time about Marty and how he was so nice to me about pulling his groin there after 3 outs and, limped off the field. That was so nice. Like, that's one of the biggest teammate things I think I've ever seen a guy do.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, but I remember the feeling of being able to go in, and I was like, oh my God, okay, I got to breathe here a little bit because I'm so pumped as I got a little older, I got a little bit smarter and kind of knew, how I react in moments, what's going to draw the negative and what's going to, make it positive. And with me, I had to be calm enough to do it. Because I remember there was times, I think Jody Ite walked over to me, and it was in that last at bat. And do you remember the name? Shortstop.
Shaw.
Kerry Shaw.
Kerry Shaw. Can't believe I didn't remember that. So K Shaw, he's up there, and I can still remember, I think we got up quick on him, and the last one, like me, I had no idea. Like, I was overthrowing terribly, right? Just looking forward to that next moment, right? We needed to, to get the out. And I think Jody came over and he's just like, hey, you might want to just breathe here and don't throw a strike right now. Like, I'm up 0-2, right? And that's the old thing you just never want to see happen. And when we were only up 1-0, right? So it's not like we had a couple of runs to spare. So no, I liked the advice, and I think the next pitch went halfway up the backstop, and I don't know how Patty Shannon even caught it. And then again, we got I think I threw a drop ball in the dirt, which Kerry swung at, but drop ball it was a rise ball in the dirt, right? So it wasn't planned. That wasn't my best spot, I'll tell you that. But yeah, the glove went flying just the same. But I look back at the pitch, and it's like, yeah, that was nowhere near where you wanted to throw it. But I don't know. I guess if we got hit every time we didn't hit our spot, that would be a tough game, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But when you're looking at that game, are you aware as a pitcher, and it's a unique question for you because you had to hit in that game too and you came up big, but are you aware as a pitcher who you're facing on the other end with Adam Folkart out there and how on his game he was that game as well?
Well, and I think you guys understand it. I mean, and it's not a conceited thing to say. You're playing at that point, you're playing the best players in the world, and in some ways it's even better than national teams playing against each other because, those teams like the Patsies and the Farm and the teams nowadays, the Gremlins, they're world class. They're from every, you're getting players from all over the world. So it's, in some cases, I would say they're probably better than a lot of the national teams out there. But, it's that kind of ball. Like you just have to be, you expect it. It's not like I'm waiting for an easy out. Like, I mean, some of those guys 3 months prior to that, and I tell this story quite a bit to, young pitchers and stuff. And if you remember the 2009, the World Championships, it wasn't a great, I came in against Donnie Hale, and I tell the story. He must have hit it 400 feet. And it was a time where I was coming in relief and I was called upon, like, this is my job. I got to get him out. Right. And then to see a lot of those Kiwis again 3 months later in a whole different situation, but still for me, it's the biggest event that I could play in, and to finally get through it and come out on top, that was obviously, an amazing moment in my career for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like the ICs, to me, it's one of the hardest, if not the hardest tournament to win. And I mean, just looking at it, the previous year, you were on the hill again in the finals of 2008. And we don't have to get into it because, I know we all know the result. But I mean, but those two games, 2008, 2009, I mean, they're ranked right up there in some of the greatest IC finals ever played.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you had to throw lights out just to get where you got against Kitchener in that game.
Yeah.
Right. Again, we don't have to get into it. I know Lolly was off crying with his shoulder and all this stuff. And,
Yes. But...
yeah. Oh, no, it's funny. I mean, that's the best. That's the best of the best. And you just, at that point, you don't, I'm not looking around the corner to look for an easy out. It's your, who you're facing. And at some point, I think nowadays, I think they do a heck of a lot better job of scouting. I don't know on the guys' side, and you guys, we should, think of the lessons that we learned from the national team, like the ladies' national team, right? All the scouting, all the prep, and all the stuff. Could you imagine? And but could you imagine if we did that?
Yeah.
We're still in some sense on the guys' side, a bunch of weekend warriors that travel so much. And I'm not going to pretend to say guys don't do that, because I'm sure there's a lot of really great hitters and pitchers and stuff that do that nowadays. But we didn't, right? We just threw our cleats on and we got our gloves and we fought and we battled and we did everything we could do. But could you imagine if we put the prep in, like you heard that our women's national team did this past, Olympics? Unbelievable, their story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's incredible. And it is, because there are times, we've talked about it a little bit on this podcast. We talked about it specifically in John Hill's episode a couple of episodes ago, where as you get older, it gets a little bit more difficult to put in the time and dedication, and scouting maybe is one of those examples where other things in your life get in the way. But could you imagine if playing fast pitch softball for a living, the way the Blue Jays show up to spring training, they show up
Wouldn't that be something
to hit every day? How good could the game of men's fast pitch be if there was some sort of an environment where you could have professionals doing it? And don't get me wrong, the game right now is great, but could you imagine if you could put everything you had into the game as if it was your job, and see what the result would be? But yeah, it's but there's a lot that goes into it, and you're not a small man, Deano, right? So weekend warrior, playing both sides of the ball field. That point of a season, are you banged up or are you primed up?
That was kind of like, I mean, the biggest question for me was, when I was called upon, or different teams that asked me to come and play, and you make a decision to go play somewhere or whatever, the biggest thing for me was always, am I going to get hurt? Like, if you're going to be called upon and be a 1 or 2 thrower for a top level ball club, like that was kind of the end of my career. That was one of the questions. I was like, that's kind of why in 2013, I kind of packed it in, because with Saskatoon, they were trying to build a little bit, and the Diamondbacks, they were trying to build a little bit. But if I'm not available, and I don't mean this again conceited, but if I'm hurt or if I'm on the shelf, they need to go get a number 1 guy, right? Or a number 2 guy or whatever. And I needed to be in a different role. And nobody was really wanting me to do that yet. Like I was ready to like go off into the sunset. And it was like, no, you should come out and play again. And then you think, well, maybe I can, but I don't know. And then I started thinking, and I'm like, if I go out there and I pull a groin in the first weekend, how disappointed is that club going to be, or, and everybody, right? Because I just didn't want to be relied upon and not be able to produce. And that was my biggest fear. And eventually that was what, led me to say, okay, I'm done. And that was after 2015.
So, all right. Well, if I can flip back to a period of time where you were relied upon.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking over your sheet here, you had an unbelievably successful Canadians career. I mean, you got 5 rings. Of those 5, they're all special in their own way. Is there one that sticks out to you that was, extra special?
Yeah, I would say the first one. I mean, that was with the Edmonton Express, and we were, I know at the time, and I didn't know how the rankings went. I think it just kind of went how you finished the year before. Like, I don't know how Canadians,
right,
how they did that, but we were ranked 13th is what I remember. And we went in there with a good ball team, but a lot of players that people didn't know yet. Like Darren Box was on that squad, and that was kind of his coming out party. He had an amazing Canadian that year. And there's so many more, but there's a lot of guys there that nobody really knew. And I think that kind of worked for us. We got the Canadians, and we went on a little bit of a run, and there were some really cool things that happened on that trip that, or that Canadian that showed how special the team was. Maybe we can get into that in a minute.
Yeah. So that was 1999, and you threw the final of that one?
I did.
Yeah.
We actually played Owen Sound, and I bugged the piss out of Tosh because we're playing. He's heard this too many times, so I'm not worried about it. But he booted a ball, and he was with. It was in the that was the final, but they had to beat us twice.
Right. And
this is what I'm talking about as far as a team went. Like Derek Judry was our thrower that threw all year for us, and back then I was either, I think I was halfway between, I was playing in the US with Heflin, and then I was playing Canadians with Edmonton. And so I just really loved, like, we got to the final and they got to beat us twice. And Greener and Bobby, the coaches, they basically said, Judry was the guy that he's done all the work for us all year, and we need to give him a shot. So he came out and he started that game for us. And that's a big decision to make, right? As a coach, and I'm not, again, it sounds bad, but you don't lose with your number one on the bench, right? It's kind of a rule, right?
Right.
And so to have that opportunity, and Judry was a great thrower. He just wasn't at the level that a lot of ones were at that time. And so when that actually took place, and they that first game, we ended up losing it, but it obviously maybe pooped Frankie Cox out a little bit, or, and that didn't hurt. And then they had to beat us again. And I think we ended up winning 2-1 or whatever. And
wow.
A really, really good ball game. And I think Boxy was on second base and with 2 out, and ground ball 8-hopper to Toshi. And I think he pulled up on it or whatever. And so it didn't even, he got enough of it that it didn't get to the outfield. It just went over in behind third base, and Boxy didn't stop, and he runs in and slides home, game over. And so Tosh has a bitter pill, but he's won his share, and he had one before me. So I just thanked him, said, thanks a lot, bud. I didn't do it right away because I don't think he would have been too happy about that, but we joke about it now. He gave me my first, so that was all right.
Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with hanging over his head. But
yeah.
What are your thoughts on the double life? It's not in the Canadians anymore. It's in the ASA, but there's right now with the ASA, it's kind of, I don't know, looked upon that if you win that Friday night game, Hilly, right? That winner's bracket final, the winner of that game gets double life in the final. If you look at the stats, there's, I don't know, I'd say 8 out of 10 times.
If you lose that first game, you're losing the second one too.
Yeah, and if you lose that double, or if you lose that winner's bracket final just to get double life,
that's the biggest game. It's the biggest game.
It's almost as big, if not bigger, than the championship game. But what are your thoughts on that double life in the final kind of setup?
Well, there's a lot of times I would say that I went through a tournament, I would say we were in that double life, so I mean, I would probably vote on the side of I would like to have that, because it's only fair. You've walked through the tournament, or you went through the tournament and you're at the undefeated game. And if you haven't been beat yet, you go to the final, somebody should have to beat you twice. That's my thoughts on it. But I'm sure for reasons, that, maybe trying to get tournaments over and people catching flights and not having to spend extra days, or like, there's a lot of things that go into it. And I'm sure they make sense for their reasoning, but I would like to see somebody have to beat somebody twice. I've been on the other side too. I don't know if we talk too much about junior ball, but we did that back in junior, same thing. You come up the B side and you have to beat the champ twice. And yeah, so I mean, it's happened.
It's interesting. I'm kind of torn. I'm torn on it, right? Because when you have double life, you want double life. when you don't have double life, you're like, oh Jesus, now this double life is stupid. Yeah, and especially you win the first one. when you don't have double life, you win the first one, lose the second one. Yeah, everyone is going back to the huddle. Well, we beat them. If it wasn't double life, we'd be champs. Right?
Yeah,
It all depends on whether you have double life or you don't have double life.
Yeah,
the way the outlook is on it, right?
For sure. Yeah. But, no, I think I'd like to see it. I think when a team that gets the A final, they've accomplished something, and they should have a little bit of an advantage if they, and I guess they do realistically, because the other team has had to go down and play an extra couple games.
Yeah, and you get to sit, I guess, you maybe get to sleep in on the Sunday. You get to wait. There's another game that got to get to you. We could debate this all day long, but it's interesting to see, because that was back when the Canadians had it. They moved away for whatever reason, but it's still in the ASA. But you talked about in the 1999 Canadians, where it was a special group, and going through that, being ranked 13th and coming away with the championship. It kind of told you a lot about the group. And anyone that knows you that's listening to this podcast now, there's a lot of elements of your game that make you a special ball player and a special teammate. As we talked about, the dual threat, number one pitcher, number three hitter. But what you bring to the team from team chemistry and how important that is to you. Was that always the case in your sports career? I know you played hockey as well, but when you looked at the team chemistry side and what you brought to the table, what stands out to you about that?
Well, I know I was always a big part of it. And again, I don't know. I don't think I ever thought about how to, I think some days now you think of, you watch young hockey players, for example, and really good ones, right? They're predicting they're going to get to the NHL, one day, and they've already got agents. They've got people showing them how to talk. They've got, what's your answer when you're first interviewed, like all this kind of stuff. And we didn't obviously have any of that. And I mean, I honestly don't remember thinking about, I gotta be the guy that runs this. I gotta say my 2 cents before every game. I never thought of that stuff. I just did what I thought I should do. Right. And I mean, I always like to have things light, because that's how I like it. I mean, we're kind of selfish that way. I like to joke around. One of the best teammates I ever had, and you guys have seen, probably had a part of him too, is Todd Budke. If you ever had an opportunity to meet the guy, he gives you that chuckle on the bench, and it could be at a real key time where nerves are starting to get the best of us. And so, I mean, I always like to be that guy that could get you a chuckle here and there at a weird time. But I mean, I was just, when I think back, I think I was fierce, if you had one word. Yeah. I was always fierce. I never would, there was never a quit. There was never a, if somebody challenged you, that's almost how I looked at every game. Somebody's challenging me here and they're not going to succeed, So.
You mentioned Butter. Butter was your teammate with the farm. Why don't you touch on the Farm Tavern a little bit? The farm is near and dear to me. I had the pleasure of playing with the Farm Tavern. Yes. And I think I came in the year after your last year, but how do you remember your time with the farm, and what are some stories about legendary coach Rod Peterson?
Oh man, Rod, everybody misses him for sure. He was always good for a chuckle here and there, but you never knew. I mean, there was times when you thought you might get a chuckle out of him, and nope, he was tearing a strip off everybody. And so, I mean, he didn't let you be too comfortable, right? Old Rod. But I was trying to think of some of the Rodisms, and one of the things, and I'm sure he did this to you, Hilly, because I know he was pretty, he would do things year after year. But if they ever intentionally walk somebody to load the bases and you were the guy coming up, you could hear him in his old, "They don't think you can do it, Deano." And I'm just like, oh, you knew it was coming. And it happened. Like the bench is ready to listen to him because he's going to say it. Right. And so that was cool. And anytime somebody was hurt or anything, got a bag of ice on, not even say they were hurt, Rod would just come by and he'd be, guess you're not made of good stuff, you'd say, right? And like those little things. I mean, I guarantee you, we've pulled some of those into coaching 101 for us, and right. We kind of realize that the young kids out there, if they're not having fun, if they're not laughing, they don't have a chuckle here or there, they don't want to come back. Yeah. Right. And so, I mean, obviously instruction now, it's kind of gotten big into my life as far as, with 222s and, some of the best coaches that I've had over the years, they're big influence on how we, how we talk and treat our kids.
I always look forward to his opening speech of the year. The first term of the year is usually Grafmeyer for us. So looking around, right. So I got to see it on both ends. You look around and all the veterans are there, and they're just kind of trying to keep a straight face and stuff like this. And then all the rookies are there, like so focused, and you never knew what he was going to say. And it was always funny, but like the man just wanted to win. That's all he wanted to do. Like I remember we played games against fucking Joe's Bar. I don't even know who they were. And like, we're bunting first inning. It's like, till we get 5 or 6 runs, and just to get that cushion go. He just wanted to win. The man just wanted to win, but he liked to have a good time off the field too.
He did. He was awesome. Awesome. And I mean, he relied on his players a lot, especially when we were there, like as far as, what young players were coming up that we who's retiring and, that sort of thing. He just kind of, I think Marty and obviously Abby used a lot. And, so that was how I got there. Definitely my contacts with Todd and Abby, I'm sure they, helped me, getting involved with Rod and the Farm Tavern. But I just, there's just so many good people. I mean, when you were on that team, you walked into a park and there was just something, the farm is here, it was like, and it was so cool to be associated with that. Right. But I forgot I was going to ask you, Hilly, did you remember your first speech with Rod on the field? Did he bring up the name of the pig?
He didn't, but he did. It wasn't on the field, but he did later on in a meeting. He asked somebody to name the pig. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you didn't know the answer, it was like, you're buying booze, right? For everybody. Right. So they set you up. Yeah. But it was also funny him trying to read out the lineup. So it was all like he couldn't pronounce these names. No rhythm.
No, and he'd always say Colin and Abbott. So there was 2 of them, Colin and Abbott. And then,
I would want 2 Collins and Abbotts in the lineup too.
And we had Save on our team, and he, of course, he would always be number 10 because he wouldn't be hitting. And to get down to him, he goes Sebastian Gurga Goody, and he's like, get out of here.
It's awesome. You bring him up. Sebastian, he is one of the, like, you want good things to happen for him. Yes. Like, I don't know if, if you probably know him more than I do, but he was one of the kids, and I'll say kids, like when I was playing with the farm, he was on one of those smaller clubs and got, up to, and he would come up to the game and he would come and ask you questions. And, and I think he was probably, I don't know how old he was, but he just loved the game.
I think he's Lolly's age. I think
that was 06.
Is he really?
Right? I don't know. Well, I played with him in 05, right? With Town Line. And I think that's when he came on the map for Rod and some of the other teams, right? He pitched with Tane Richardson, and we finished 5th in the world that year. We played County. We played the Farm. We played Bow, or a version of Bow. I'm not sure what it was in 06, but he was playing against these top teams. And just as you said it, you just want to see the guy win.
He was such a good guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was great to see him get the nod to the top echelon of the teams, the top 3 teams in the world. He went from grinding it out, taking his lumps, playing well the year before, and then he got the nod to go to the Farm. He's a great guy, great teammate. But you bring him in. He is the kid on that team when he's joining the Farm. But there's so much about the farm I want to talk to you guys, both of you. But so you answered one of my questions about when you got there, and was Marty and Butter and those guys on the team when you were there. Do you remember, were you there when Butter stepped in his own glove with his hand in it when Marty talked about that? Were you on the farm then, or
had to have? I shouldn't say I had to. There was a lot of funny moments with the farm. Like when I think of Butter, it was the one when I had to tie up my shoe, or I don't know, fix my belt or something, tuck my shirt, and I can't remember, but I had to turn around out to center field. And when we just got the out, so they were throwing the ball around, and I'm assuming, Butter's playing third base. He's going to flip the ball over to me when he's done. And I turn around and I actually step on the ball. He put it on the mound, right? So, I stepped on it instead of him just throwing it to me. So, and again, you look at it and then you start burst out laughing. And one, he climbed the lower diamond there in one of like the semifinal or big game, right? We're down there, place is packed. He climbs the wall, stretches out over top, catches it about 4 or 5 feet over the fence, falls back down in, and then and everybody's just going, oh my God. And my face was like, oh, like, way to go. I couldn't hold it back. And then he's just like, what? Like as if he just does it all the time. Right. And so of course everybody's laughing again, but yeah, he was a beauty. Like, I still, every chance we got, we go to get out to that coast, I want to have some kind of way to hook up with him. And he's actually worked with he came out and coached with us one time down in Lancaster, California. It was just a great time. So, well,
a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, you didn't answer, but me and Hilly got on the FaceTime. We had a couple of beer there on Saturday night. It started off with me and Hilly, and then we looped in Shalesy. Next thing you know, we got 17 guys. Yeah, there's 17 guys or something. And then, but what happened after that is that every day someone would just open up that. Yeah. And then your phones ring with 17 people coming in. But we had Butter on that night. Todd Martin, Paul Court, Robbie O'Brien, Ian Fairman. And it was just people coming in. And next thing you know, we're a few drinks in that night, Hilly. But I think your phone must have been buzzing off the hook that night, Deano.
Well, you guys, that really helps me, because I thought my phone was screwing up. Like I literally had no clue. Because I tried to answer a couple times, like where you just push and I'm thinking somebody was trying to video me or FaceTime is what was it? Everybody FaceTiming? Is that what was going on?
There was FaceTime. 18 of us on there having a beer, just chatting.
Well, I
Butter was holding court.
Fairman. Yeah, I saw Fairman's name pop up, and I'm like, well, geez, he probably just pocket dialed me because he's never called me in his life, But great guy. If I want to catch up with him. But I just can't imagine him calling me. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And it happened for about a week after, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Every couple of, just a quick little ring there. And I'm like looking at my phone, like, is it going to ring again? No. Okay. Well, I don't know. That was pretty good. The next time I'll pick up though, right away.
Yeah. Well, we could have sent out a couple of text messages saying it was coming in, but we were just off the cuff, Hilly. That was
that's funny.
Awesome. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but we were talking about Butter. He was on there holding court the way he does. But I've got the chance to play with you and a few different years and big situations. But when I think back to Dean Holoien, the ball player, nothing will replace the time I saw you in a farm uniform. I think it was in Kitchener or Kimberley. I can't remember what field it was on, but I can always remember you were standing up. You guys had the black uniforms with the blue stripe down the side. And you were leaning up against the fence, just talking to a fan, but you looked like the most intimidating person. I didn't know you at the point. Hilly, me and you were together at this point. I think we were 20 years old. And Rob Gray was there. But I think about the lineup that you guys had hitting. I know your memory's not good, but can you remember the hitting lineup on the farm, the batting order for the first, 5 or 6? Because was it Rosebush?
I would say Wolfie,
Rosebush.
Sometimes it was Butter. Yeah, Colin, Eider, Butter, Grazer. Grazer was in there too at times, right? So, and
then you were hitting.
I was in the mix somewhere.
Danny Hale would have been there. DJ was there at one point.
DJ, Miller.
I never got to play with him.
But it was... I can remember just looking at that lineup, and I think I have a greater appreciation for it now. How do you pitch against that lineup when you're talking about the likes of Ryan Wolf into Paul Rosebush, and then Grazer, Abbey, Dean Holoien. The list goes on and on. Donnie Hale. It was unbelievable. And the reason I bring it up, a lot of these guys are the best players in the game, some of the best personalities, but all the top teams were like that back when you were playing in the early 2000s, especially when the county and Bow farm era was kicking off. What was that like, especially going into the weekend of the ISC, playing on a big team like that with the farm?
Well, I don't mean any disrespect either, but I think that our era was the best. It was, and I don't mean for talent. I just mean there was so many great players out there, and I know years before us that, and again, that's what I mean. No disrespect to some of the pioneers before us, but I think our era was the best. I think we had the best travel. We saw the world. At the time, there was so many great pitchers that were, and players that were just retiring, right? So, I mean, there was a lot of heroes for us, and then the teams that we played, you brought up some of the guys on the squad that we had, but you look at the games, as good as the hitting lineups were, there were still a lot of 3-1, 3-2, 4-1, like 1-0, 2-1 ball games with the best hitters in the world. So the pitching had to be all right too, so I mean, even when the batting orders got so strong, I still think the scores were, for the most part, pretty good ball games. How
good was Musey back then when he went on that run?
Amazing. And the record that he's got, I'm sure that's not going to be but again, that's a different era now we're talking, right? Like, people aren't going to, I don't think you're going to see it. And as we get a little longer in the tooth, our guys' side of the game, we're in trouble if we don't start grooming some of our young lads to pitch, because we're going to run out of somewhere. And I mean, the people with the money, the teams with the money, they're still going to get players from all over the world. It's just that our sport is going to become a South American, European, Asian. That's how it's going to get, because we don't have enough young men coming up throwing the ball like they need to face the best hitters in the world, because the best hitters in the world today are still the best hitters in the world. Do you know what I'm saying? So our pitching has to get a lot better, I think. And we're just going to run out of our well, in Canada, and we need to get better at that. And so I think, rather than just watch how it goes, we're going to try do what we can do and develop some young men ball players. I mean, we have to, because right now the way it happens is we, for the most part, like, think of all the young pitchers that that you've faced maybe over the last couple of years, or teams that you've kind of helped out or coached or went to camps and clinics. Think of some of them. If every one of those young guys that I've seen, and I can say, from Ontario, I've seen 4 or 5, if every one of those guys were amazing, because they're going to have to be, then you got one pitching staff.
Yeah. When you put it like
that's
that,
pretty sad. You know what I mean? Like, for a national team or something like that. So we need them from somewhere else. And I mean, like I say, the rich teams, the big ones, the Hills, the Gremlins, whoever's the next, right? They're still going to get their pitchers from wherever they're going to get them from. They'll just get them from South America or wherever, right? New Zealand, Australia. I want them to get them from Canada, right? So something has to happen or click here with our sport, or that's just not going to happen. We're just going to phase into a different type of sport. I don't know. It's a big deal. I think we've got to figure this out.
And now, like, it's such a global sport now. You look at teams like teams like Venezuela, and like Argentina is a pitching factory.
Yeah.
Dominican Republic, Cuba. Like, I mean, back then, like back way when you were playing, or even before your time, like, those countries were a pushover. Right. But now they're coming with guys throwing high 70s, low 80s that you never heard of before, and they're 20. Right? So you're right in what you're saying. Like, it's.
How did I get going on that when you asked me something about music?
I know, it's context.
How did I go there?
That's why I put context to the questions. You wanted it to the point, and now you're gone on tangents again, Deano.
I know. I just started thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, he asked me something about, Musey, and Musey was fantastic. He was incredible. The thing that he rolled off there at the IC, I don't think it'll ever happen again. Right. So, I mean, and he was different. Like, he had he hopped a little different. He paused at the top of his pitching motion, right? And that gave a lot of people, reasons for trying to, get in his head a little bit or ask umpires if it's legal. And, he was definitely somebody that had the advantage. And I mean, the levers and the, everything he had to throw the ball, man, he threw it hard. And he had a good devastating change up too, right? So, I mean, he was one of the best for sure.
Just keeping on the pitching development for a little bit. I got to see it firsthand this summer up to the Grand Slam. Saskatchewan got some good young pitchers coming up, and I'm talking like Jordan Hudson, Zippy Pierce, Nick Patrick, who I got to see for the first time this summer, and of course Steve-O's there. But you get to see these guys all the time.
I'd like to see them more.
Yeah.
I'm down in Regina a couple, and so of course I was going to actually ask some of you guys, some of the players that tell me some of the teams right now, like give me some lineups and that kind of thing, because I've been, when you get out of it, you're out of touch. And, I shouldn't have just said Ontario. Obviously, like Saskatchewan has some great young pitchers here. BC up in the north, they've got some good boys fastball. So you're going to see that happening, and they're going to be coming out of those areas constantly. A little churning of great little softball players, but it's not going to be forever. And I don't think we have the ball, the number of players playing to be able to get world-class ball players out game after game. So we got to come up with something.
You know what's crazy when we just talking through this is because I'll always in my mind look back on my career as if I'm looking up to you guys playing, like at that stage of my career. And then you go along, and before you know it, you're 20 years in. And I look over now at me and Hilly were the young guys going in, looking at these guys. Adam Folkart, Bradley Ezekiel, Andrew Kirkpatrick, Juan Portolicio. All these guys were the young guys coming in, just trying to fit in, and get on a top team and win. And I'm looking across now, and Cheese is one of the older guys. Hilly's one of the older guys. Bradley, who's always been the young guy, is one of the older ones. And it's a shift. It mind fucks you a little bit when you get to that point. And I know you went
sad.
through it as well. It is sad, but there are some fantastic young ball players on the way up. And in Canada, a guy like Tyler Pawlai is a fantastic athlete, right? And the fact that you see some of these national teams, Canada's doing a really good job of it over the last cycle of bringing in some of these guys. And I just say him as one example. The game is just different for me now when you show up to the ball field, because it's not the same atmosphere as it was. And I'm not saying that in a good or a bad way, but
just different.
It is. Yeah. It's different, right? Because the ISC that we came into was more of a social gathering with great competition. Like the beer tents back then, when you go in, all the teams were there. Now, COVID kind of kiboshed a lot of what we did over the last couple of years, but I remember going in the beer tent. Everyone's just standing around until the lights are turned off, and you got people holding court. You're one of the guys that are known for holding court with Marty and Abby and these guys. And for me, that was the most special time, was getting to be a part of that, witness it, even from afar, just seeing it. What do you remember about that era, just from the social aspect of going to these tournaments? Because there was 10 tournaments a year. Right back then, traveling every weekend, but just the beer tent side of it. There were some legendary beer tent sessions back in the day too.
Well, for sure there was. I mean, I talk about Moncton quite a bit. Moncton is. Do they have their little Moncton tournament anymore?
No,
I shouldn't say little.
I think 09 or 2010 might have been the last time we had.
I love that one.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah, we had some great memories there. And I mean, you talk about the after. The after game kind of stuff. It was amazing.
That Moncton beer tent could sneak up on you, Deano. It happened to me.
It did. It did. There was the year we had this, and I don't know the guy's name, but to this day, but I've seen him a few times at tournaments, and I think he's looked at me and with kind of like a chuckle and not. We haven't said anything since. So I got to tell you. So the story is, we're at a karaoke. They're having karaoke in this big tent, and it's right next to the ball field. So the lights are all off now that nobody's playing there. Everybody's in there and obviously having a couple of sarsaparillas and they're singing and whatever. And all of a sudden this girl, two girls they're karaokeing, they're singing a Garth Brooks song, right? Which I thought they were doing a great job. I just had no idea, right? And Tosh thought that there was something wrong with that. So he's like, hey, like, so he goes up there and he actually kind of pulls the mic out of one of their hands and he's kind of saying, you should maybe sing another song because this is a Garth Brooks song. Like Garth sings Garth. Like you can't sing Garth. Like here, sing, Cyndi Lauper or something. So he takes the mic away. Well, this other guy, this big dude, probably a boyfriend or something, comes up and he's ready to, spike Tosh into the ground. And so I kind of football tackle him and everything. Like it was just a big melee, and Butters doing the one-handed lean up against the pole that's holding the whole tent up, but he wasn't moving. There's no way he could go anywhere. So it was just kind of me and this other dude, and we're kind of wrestling around on the ground. And I just, whatever, it was like one of those moments that just kind of happened. Whatever. It was a little fun, but at the end of the day, nobody really got hurt.
But those are the beer tents that we remember. Like, there's someone singing a song. Like, this one had a karaoke and a brawl, and everyone standing around.
For 3 years that we would go back there, and it was like, is that the guy? Like that's the guy I had by the throat. I'm like, I had him so close, like he was like just a little bit of air was coming out. So, and I kind of remember thinking. It was so funny. And I saw him the next getting a beer at the thing, buying some beer, whatever. He's up there. We look at each other and it's just like, hey, how's it going? I think that's the guy. He's thinking I know that guy. I'm thinking I know him. And then I picture it. Yeah, that's the guy
that's like every weekend down on George Street.
Give it to Tosh. yeah. It's George Street on a Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah. You go down the next weekend, you see the same guy that you got in a racket with. Oh, well, buy him a beer.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of crazy fun memories for sure. I remember you kind of leaving the park in your uni and showing up in your uni every once in a while. Well,
yeah, well, we talked about it a couple of times, but yeah, I've left my gear there a while. But you got a good buddy there at Hilly. I knew it was in good hands, but
right.
Yeah, but I had to show up there. I think one year I showed up in shorts. I didn't have anything. The next year, all my other uniforms were in my ball bag, which I left, and Hilly took it, and I showed up. I think I had the wrong uniform on. My whole team, I'm like a soccer goalie, right? Like the whole team is dressed in one uniform, and I'm just in the exact opposite, right? Showing up. Yeah. Let's go, boys. Come on. Big game today. Big game this morning.
But a good tournament to watch, man. It was like
Moncton was awesome.
Eight of the best teams in the world, one ball field. You're all right there. Like, what a tournament to take in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was fabulous. And I always associated with good food too. Like I remember the corn and cob at Eau Claire. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
Eau Claire was wicked.
Eau Claire was amazing. Yeah. They had the hot mustard sandwiches at that little pub, whatever it was called. I can't remember the pub.
Was it Ray's?
Ray's.
Yeah, Ray's. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. But it kind of brings my point around where back then there's not a lot of that still left in the game. Right, there's still some really special places to go in the big tournaments. There's always a buzz, but the 7th of July weekend, just a random tournament, was some of the best ball you'd ever see play in the Eau Claire Classic. And then you had the Grafenmeyer, you had the whatever it was there in Dolan and Murphy tournament. Where was that, Hilly? The Aurora, Illinois.
Aurora, yeah.
Yeah. Then you had the Moncton tournament, and there was always a tournament in Kitchener, and it was just
they had tournaments awesome. Too. Tournaments all over the place. Yeah.
And
all the tournaments
teams,
as well.
What do you listen? Tournaments.
Well, Jesus.
Listen. Tournaments.
Come on. Okay. All right, gotcha. Yeah.
You got it. Tournaments.
Turn your head.
Oh, here we go.
Tournaments.
Listen, I'll turn this conversation into something else. How's that for you? but sometimes I take for granted when we talk to a guy like you that everyone kind of knows who you are, what you've done in the game, but we do got to pause for a second I do want to read out here. You're a 5-time Canadian senior men's champion, like Hilly said, 2-time ASA champion, and you won the ISCs in 2009, all of them in an impact role. That's a pretty incredible career, and then when you look back on the accomplishments that you've had and some of the players that you had a chance to play with, we haven't really talked about your Team Canada career. When you look back at your career, any big moments outside of some of the ones that we talked about that stand out maybe on the Team Canada side? Because I do want to talk about 2004.
It's just, I don't know, man. I think back, and now that you're not, I'm not in it, not playing it, you look back and I don't have as many special memories as you would think. Of course, the times you win are really memorable and that sort of thing. But I mean, even times that if you brought up, just an average weekend that we would have, it would be one of the best weekends you could ever put together. We had 10 of those every summer. You'd go to somewhere else, and even if it wasn't a top tournament, then you're right. That's the camaraderie. That's the team getting together. That's somebody spraying a hotel with freaking fire extinguisher thing. And like, there was some bad things that happened. And I mean, the guy, like, I thought Rod was going to pack it up. Like, I don't know how many years prior to when he did, but I mean, it's crazy fun memories that from 92 to basically still going, right? Still get every once in a while we get a good weekend, and I can't wait to get on the plane tomorrow to get to Las Vegas. We're heading there for our tournaments down there for our kids. So I don't know. I try to think back on big moments, and everything was just so much fun. I miss all the guys. Like, I'm sure you get that from, a lot of the older fellas. I just miss, we brought up Opie playing short. Well, I haven't talked to Opie forever, right? Probably since the last time I saw him on a diamond. Well, when we were ever playing on the same team or same tournament, we had all sorts of laughs, right? Once that's done, it's done. And I mean, you have your close friends and guys that you see more and more, but I sure miss the ones that, were the good guys that, you don't have a chance to just see them every day or yak with them every day. And that's what I think back to. I mean, think of the national team. I still think back, one of the biggest moments was the alley-oop that we almost had, Lolly.
Oh, listen, buddy.
I heard about this.
It was so close, Hilly. It was so pretty.
I heard about this.
Yeah. And I don't even know where to begin with that. Well, I still got to sleep awkwardly with my shoulder to this day. And, I still got the hops. You knew I had the hops. You just didn't throw it in the right spot.
Yeah.
And Smitty wasn't too happy.
He hated me. I think I must have, like, to make any team after that year. What year did that happen?
Well, let's set the scene, right? Because we all know what happened. So we're at a camp. I think it's 2008, maybe.
Yeah.
2008 camp. We're in Kitchener, I believe, and we're doing the beep test. It's the fitness testing. We go in.
That was easy. The beep test part was so easy.
Oh yeah, I think
once we got that done, yeah.
They had to stop you at level 22, if I believe. Yeah. You and Wolfie just jogging, but we got through it, right?
Yeah. Okay. We got through it.
Everyone's good, and then normally after that, it's perfect. Now it's team bonding. Let's go have a few beers, go out to Idleways, have a few chicken wings. Deano wants, we start shooting around the basketball as everyone's packing up. Yeah. Come on, Lolly, let's shoot around. And then I think I told you to alley-oop it or whatever. And
yes.
I took off, and you can't pass word of shit.
Oh, I led you easily. Easily was a nice little, the alley was there. It was the loop that you kind of went oops instead of loop. You missed the loop. It's alley-oops is what happened.
Alley-oops, yeah. And then went down the shoulder popped out, and that was brutal.
Here's a question for you, though.
The boys.
Do you think Smitty had any team bonding basketball activities after that?
Done.
I bet you he didn't. So
you improved the program with that one.
That's right. We're paving the way, right? Yeah. Can you imagine if, like, but think about all the, because everybody was competitive. I remember that was one of the biggest full contact basketball games you could get. And there was like guys falling and rolling and, it was like just a little fun basketball game at the end of a workout, and it was like,
didn't have to dribble.
No, yeah, it was pretty good.
But speaking of fitness testing, though, but do you remember when we all went to Florida, Hilly? I think that was your very first camp when we went down to Florida, and we had to do all this fitness testing in a conference room with carpet.
Yeah,
and they don't do the agility run anymore. I think you might have put the end of that one too.
Yeah, put the old carpet up on the side of the wall.
Yeah. So what we did is all the players had to do an agility test, and they had 3 bits of tape. They were about one in the middle, and then 10 yards to your right and 10 yards to your left. You start in the middle, and Bruce would blow the whistle or set the timer, and you take off, run, touch the right line, run back through the middle, go all the way, touch the left line, and then you got to break the plane in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's agility. And I didn't know you very well. Well, just getting to know you back then.
Yeah.
And you just started screwing with you just take off before they do it. But
It's all in the start.
Frank Cox? Was it you or Frank Cox that face planted?
I think it was Frank. Was it?
I didn't fall. No, I actually was
Frankie did.
right up there, but I think it was because
Frank did.
I would kind of get the first starter, right? I'd say, okay, I'm ready to, and then I'd be gone, right? So you'd get that little extra that would help. Yeah. So
I remember doing the plank. I was a little scrawny little shit, never had a muscle to call my own. And I was like, this plank, I was fucking struggling with this plank, right? And I was like, I can't be the first.
Jack now, I suppose.
Ripped now. Oh, yeah. I was like, I can't be the first fucking one to go, right? So I'm here doing a plank, and 30 seconds in, there's fucking bodies dropping. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
No, I and that plank was a tough one because I could hold the plank for a long time, but then I'd be out of commission for the next 2 weeks.
And you couldn't pitch.
Yeah. So I don't know. There was a lot of fun.
To keep the fun rolling a little bit. I think this is a fun one, but what I respect and loved about you in your career is that even though you were a hitter, you were never shy away from dotting a guy, sticking a guy. So
tough one.
Did it ever cross your mind coming to the plate? Maybe like their favorite's going to be returned here.
You know what?
Did it ever happen?
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get hammered here, but I never got hit, and I don't mean that again. I don't mean it because everybody was scared. I never got hit. So I guess that you can chalk it up to being one of the guys that, you don't like to hit that guy. So I must have been an okay guy to be around, a teammate or a guy you played against.
Like reflexes.
It wasn't. Well, I honestly couldn't remember. And I said this right up until last year. We're still playing a little Masters ball, right? So I had said it right up into provincials last year. And I finally got hit. This young fella hit me in the shin, and it frickin' hurt. Like, it was so bad. But it broke the streak because I literally said, like, in 20 years, I don't remember getting hit.
Well,
and so if that rings true, if your theory on this is correct, that they don't hit the good guys, Hilly, you must be an asshole. No, you get hit more than anyone I know.
How many times have I hit you, Hilly? I bet you.
Well, I was just going to say, I know one possible reason why you probably didn't get hit in return. You hit me in Newfoundland in 2007, and I would have physically been unable to hit you because I could barely walk the fucking first, let alone go out and pitch. But
you were tough, and I mean I'll tell you now, but I'm sure you've had to reinvent yourself as a hitter many times over. Right. So I'm not giving any life secrets away here.
No.
But I always thought that if I could throw the ball right in this one spot for you, that I could get you. And that's, it was a real tough miss because if you missed, I didn't want to miss over the plate. So if I was going to miss, I'm going to miss on the side of being in, and you got hit a lot from me. I know that. It's got to be 4, 5, 6 times. I bet you over the years.
You used to hit me. Corey used to hit me.
You hit Patty Shannon quite a bit too. Patty, you probably you got him a new elbow pad probably every single year. I remember you hit him a lot.
The best is in 2008. So I think that game, I hit him 3 times, or if not 3, it was 2, and I just hit him like whatever, and there was another game, and I think I'd hit him a couple times in that game, but Patty had that really funny stance, right? And so he would be completely open, 2 toes at the back of the batter's box facing you as a pitcher, right? And standing with the bat, in between his ears, and it was just like weirdest stance ever. But he used to always say there's a lot of funny stances, like Jody Henniger whipping his bat around, and Zeke, his bat in his hand so high. But when they get, those hitters, the good ones, when they get to their actual hitting point, they're in good position. You know what I mean? They might have the thing that makes them a little different, but Patty, but when he used to close, he was always right on the plate, and you couldn't throw him inside without hitting him. Right. So, you ended up throwing him away. That's what he wanted. Right. So when you faced him, and then when I faced him, it was always in. And then that last time I hit him, I think was 2008 was the last time I'd ever hit him. And it was 2 or 3 times in the final game. And I just looked over to him at first because we're buddies. Like, I like Patty a lot. Like, I never, and then in 2009, of course, he's my catcher when we win. Right. So we've had a lot of good memories and back and forth stuff. And so I never hit him because I didn't like him. I had to throw inside, and like a lot of guys that threw inside on him, they hit him. And I just wasn't willing. I mean, I'm sure he still hit his share of home runs, but I just didn't want to let him get his hands extended. Right.
That's right.
So, yeah. So I hit him a lot, hit you a lot. I can't think of too many others, but I just think on the hitting people on purpose stuff, it usually comes back to bite you, So, I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
Part of the game is part of the game
anymore.
Yeah.
You don't see it as much now. As,
I've never done it ever. Never done it.
You did it to Bradley in league, for fuck's sake.
I thought you were going to talk about when I hit you.
Well, anyone
righties in the
goes
head, lefties in the foot, isn't it? Or for those lefties? No, that's not how it works. Yeah.
Dean, I went 6 for 6 with 6 home runs off Hilly. You expected to get
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He hit me. I'm staying at his freaking house. He drills me, right? Anyway, but that was days gone by.
Good stuff.
But a couple of things I want to touch on with you, Deano, before we wind her down, because it'd be a missed opportunity. But we talked a little bit about Patty Shannon that time and some of the great teams you got to play with. But being on the mound in a lot of these big games, I'm thinking of some of the catchers you got a chance to throw to. Right? Patty being one in 2009, Sean O'Brien you've thrown to at the ISCs and the Canadians. Craig Crawford, I think you threw to him at times. So when you look back at some of the catchers you've had a chance to play with, what comes to mind?
Well, I mean, it just usually took time because, I mean, it wasn't like I never ever didn't like a catcher. It was, we just had to kind of get in sync, and we had lots of different kind of catchers. Like obviously Boxy was a big dude back there, and you compare him to Craw. How Craw is such a small little target back there. It was a different way, but once you get used to that, I mean, I like throwing to Craw too. And obviously Obi was, I would probably say, have to be my favorite as far as, just how he handled pitchers and how he never really got excited. Didn't matter what was going on the scoreboard or in their bench or whatever. He just was pretty level-headed, and he kept me that way. So I really liked throwing to Obi. He was just easy to throw to. But I mean, there was a lot. Wolfie from California, Todd Garcia. He was really good. Patty Shannon, probably athletic wise, was probably the best. I mean, he didn't do everything, I would say, as perfectly formed as maybe you'd like to see, but he was amazing. Just hand-eye was unbelievable. And I think I would say probably on Obi, I'd give Obi the advantage to, as far as thinking hitters through, maybe not, there's times where you maybe not going with my best because he knows, and I just had that trust with Obi, right? Like, he knows this guy, if he didn't like drop balls or whatever, even though drop ball wasn't what was on my mind to throw, I just had to trust him. And when I did, it usually worked out in our benefit. So, but when it didn't, I let him know too.
Of course.
Yeah.
But one thing, it drives me nuts. One thing that drives me nuts about all those elite catchers, all the good ones, when you're batting, they don't fucking shut up.
Yeah, they want to talk your ear off.
Yapping at you, yapping. Obi was bad. Patty was bad. Ryan Boland's always talking. I'm like, boys, it's hard enough to hit this thing. Like, just stop.
Shut up right now.
Yeah, we'll have a beer after.
Yeah.
Oh, it used to drive me bonkers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Chatterbox.
Sean Obi was the worst for it. In the big games, you walk in, hey, Lolly, here it is. Time to be a hero.
Yeah.
Shut up. And you know what he's doing, right? He's like, shut up, man.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. Could have been first inning at the Grafmeyer. Could have been seventh inning at IC final. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
But it was fun, man.
That's fun.
Get in there. But well, folks, we've been involved in a lot of tough games over the years. And after those, we like to debrief with an ice-cold Miller Lite. With its great Pilsner taste and only 90 calories and 3 grams of carbs per serving, after every tough game, it's always Miller time. Please drink responsibly. I want to talk about 2004. I heard you guys talk about it on your podcast, which we're going to talk about your podcasts here in a minute. But you had Mark Sorensen on for a couple of episodes. That was a really good podcast. If any of our listeners haven't checked that out, check out Two's Talk podcast, all the episodes. But the one with Mark Sorensen in particular was a pretty special two-part series, I guess you could call it. And you guys got into discussion about the 2004 ISF down in New Zealand, where you guys lost in the final, and there was a brawl. There was some controversy around whether there was stealing of signs and video and all out there. And you guys kind of hashed that out on the podcast. And if I could briefly sum it up, he basically put his name on the line to say that none of that happened. And I really liked how you and Tosh, who were there, kind of navigated that. You did call him out and you asked about it, but you just brought up Boxy as well. And the way the brawl started, I believe, Boxy got hit in the head. And then things happened. Can you walk us through that brawl and maybe just that whole championship game and the controversy overall?
Well, the way I remember it, again, the way I remember it might not be exact, but there was a play that happened at third base before, and I think it might have been Rona, again, a buddy of ours that we all know, and when you're playing against him, he's a competitor, so you're going to lock horns every once in a while. And I remember him. I think it was him that slid into third base on Eider, and he had cleats up or whatever, and it was just kind of a little bit of a chat, and everybody kind of slowly cleared and had some talks, and then we went back to the bench. And then I believe it's the first pitch the next inning, Boxy gets it in the head, right? And it was Jimmy Wana, or Jimmy Seaman. I think he's changed his name to Jimmy Wana. I don't care, whether, and again, think about, when I think of myself as a player back then, it was like you're at war, you're out there, and I mean, somebody hits one of your players, and nobody had to tell you to get off the bench to get out there, and we're going to try even this up. And again, it was a big stage, and I don't mean any disrespect for Team Canada, and there should be another level of professionalism that comes with that. So, I mean, it's not lost on me that, hey, we're out there brawling and, looks bad for your country and the sport and all that kind of stuff. Cause it does, we can say it what it is. It's not great, but you also can't take away the fierceness in you, that competitive nature, that when something happens like that, you're going to go to the, battle for your teammates. And that's exactly what happened. Everybody cleared the bench, and there was a picture that was floating around out there of Donnie Hale on my back, and so I'm chasing. So I'm trying to get to Seaman, and Donnie Hale has got me wrapped around, and we went down with our boys team, and this is why it's just, times change, and you realize that you don't always have to hate, and at the time you might probably think that you're going to do anything to win, and you can't stand those rest of those guys. But when I went over in 2020 with our young boys team, and we went and played a little series over there, and they let us play in their national, we got to see all these guys like Chubb and Sorensen and Macchia and Rona. And we talked to them, and Hale was one of them, and he's the one that was on my back. And then I still consider those guys real good buddies, and right. But, thinking back in 2004, we were 1,000% convinced that there was somebody flashing signs. Now, we, as a pitcher, Hilly and Lolly back in your day, because everybody was a pitcher at one point, absolutely. When a guy swings knowing what's coming, right? And I'm not going to say, if I threw 100 pitches, 80 of them were rise balls. So, you could pretty much guess, and you'd have a pretty good chance of getting it right if you knew what I was throwing, right? So but that's still different. You still got to hit it. It could be in, it could be out, it could be down, it could be knee height, it could be up over your, so there's still you still got to find the pitch and hit it, right? And I was convinced, and a lot of us were convinced, that New Zealand they had somebody out in out in the field that would stand up as soon as they got the sign and sit down if there was a different pitch and whatever. And we were convinced of that 100%. And so until obviously talking to Mark, and I still to this day, until I talked to Mark, I really thought I was 100% sure, and nobody's ever can convince me otherwise. Right. But when you talk to somebody and is respected in the game and done as many things as what Mark did, and you kind of, whether you talk to him or not, what he's all about, what he's done in his career, and he's still doing in his career as a coach. And he flat out said 100% it didn't happen. So to me, that makes me think, and I'm not just as naive just to think, okay, well, I'm going to believe him, but I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's earned that. And the benefit of the doubt and the fact that there's other ways people can know what's coming, right? Like maybe it wasn't a guy standing up in center field. Maybe I was real shitty at showing every pitch. And these guys were really, really good at knowing what pitch was coming. They're good at that, right? Yeah. So they're, it's easy for us to just jump to the conclusion and say, okay, yeah, that's what was happening. And there's obviously some truth to the fact there was a guy out there with a camera, and that part of it we could see. So the rest of it, to me, whether it was 100% at the time, yeah, I was 100% convinced it was happening. Nowadays, I don't know. I think for the people that I've talked to, I've just kind of cooled on it, and I don't know exactly what the truth is. Only those people involved in it would know, but I'm okay with taking somebody's word at this point.
Well, like, what was it, like two or three of the home runs or something, where change-ups or something? Was that what it was, or? It
was different on. Obviously, it wasn't me change up, but it was Musey and Z. Yeah. And I mean, you think about your pitching staff too, and we talked a little bit about hitting guys on purpose. And Rona, he got hit on purpose that day, and I know he knows it. And again, I think we can joke about it. It's been a long time ago, and but I remember our staff. Like, think about our staff at the time. There weren't a lot of, they're fantastic pitchers. Musey was one of the best ever. Zach is my idol, right? Not the two guys that you think are just going to stir it up and cone somebody. You know what I mean? And I mean, when I say cone, right, I don't mean hit somebody in the head, but if you got hit in the ass by me, that was pretty much on purpose. That to me was, I aimed for a fleshy spot, and
I got hit in the leg.
I think I hit you in the shoulder a few times too. Yeah. But anyway, that's just, I don't know. It was quite a incident to have it all, to go through it. And I think, had we handled it differently, like looking back at it now, like I wonder if there was ways we could have probably stayed within ourselves. That's probably one of the moments that's one of the biggest sports moments I've ever had. And I probably didn't, like, I know when I went into pitch, was I thinking about, hitting the perfect spot, or was I thinking about hitting the perfect spot? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And how good, how good could we have been if we were a little bit more focused at that? Let's be honest about it, right? Like, I don't know. I'd like to handle it differently. And I mean, I think we're all smarter as we get older, right? I just don't think we go back and do the exact same thing over and over again. I think we would handle ourselves differently. And that's one tournament that I definitely would have.
Yeah. And I like that we're talking about it now, especially after having listened to you and Mark and Tosh talk about it together, because it is one of those controversial men's fast pitch international moments that it's kind of folklore. Yeah. Right. Did it happen? Didn't it happen? And I'm really glad that you took us through your side of it. I think you're the right guy to kind of give the perspective from the Canadian side. But that was a pretty big moment in the sport, in the rivalry between the Kiwis. I know you talked about on your guys' podcast the respect that you gained by going over there and spending time in their culture, in their softball mindset when you brought your team over there. And I don't know if you want to briefly touch on what that trip did kind of in your mind around the Canadian-New Zealand softball relationship in your mind anyway.
Well, just the simple thing about the haka and how to handle it. When, how angry were we? Like, for years, right? As soon as you saw it, it's like, God, I've seen this too many times. It's just annoying. And we've tried all sorts of different things. We've locked arms. We've sang the national anthem. We've turned our backs. There's been a time where the team went down the line and, just disregarded it. All those things didn't seem to be the right way to handle it. And I wish, again, time being what it is, we could go back and just be prepared a little bit more for how to handle that, right? And when you understand, like, I think for us, like, our boys were just glued to Chub Tangaroa telling his story about the haka, and the boys, like the young boys from New Zealand, that were saying what they thought of the haka and all the different stories and the different dialects. And we just gained a respect for it. Like, it's a really, really cool thing that they do to get themselves going. And is it fair when you think about it? Probably not. What team has to stand and watch somebody get all riled up and do what they do? It's not overly fair, but for me, it makes us understand a little bit more about their culture and why they do it. And it's a challenge. It's not a disrespect thing. It's a challenge. And so I know how I would handle it. And I know how I would handle young ball players going over there and seeing that for the first time, or facing it, just understanding it. And we would study that until the point where you knew every reason and why they were doing it. And then you just embrace it. Right. Instead of the first 5 pitches you throw, you're still angry because you're so revved up. Like, that 04, what we did is we were going to stay in the dugout. So when they did the haka right before the game, we stayed in the dugout. And again, it wasn't like we just thought, what do you want to do, guys? And all these different options. And we're like, okay, let's just stay in the dugout. So, but I'm vibrating in the dugout. Like, where the fans are booing us now, right? Because we're not coming out. And it's just like, and then I'm thinking, don't. And then all of a sudden I'm out there. Like, I'm out at the mound, right? And then everybody's out. All of our team comes, right? So then we all go right out to the mound. And then we were jacked. Like, after that was over, we were just all fired up. I think we scored 3 or 4 runs in the first inning, and then they scored 9, right? So, but it just, I don't know. I'm excited about thinking about it right now, just talking about it. But
yeah, it's cool, man.
Yeah, it was a cool moment for sure. And 04 is a really special time. And obviously we didn't win, but had some amazing memories with some amazing ball players and stuff that I'll look back on and hopefully remember for a few more years anyways.
Yeah, you talked about bringing those boys down to New Zealand. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the 222s program, softball camps, and yourself and Tosh, I'm sure a bunch of other people that are involved in, and the great strides that you guys are making. I follow you guys, and you followed your trip down, on the social media and stuff like that. And it seems like some of your girls are getting signed like every other week to
Hilly. It's turned into something that is, we've talked about it, and I'm proud of this. Like, I'm proud of our, where we are. And I'm proud that we had our first, like a staff meeting or whatever for Christmas. Like, we kind of had, okay, so we're getting together and we're kind of planning, and we talked about, where we want to go and where we see things going with the company, and, who as instructors, how much do you want to be involved? Do you want to work a whole bunch? Do you want to just do trips? Do you want to, just things that we could talk about so we understand our instructors a little bit more? Because right now we have really on this close to 50 or 60 instructors that would call at any time.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Obviously 10 to 15 of them are ones that we rely on quite a bit, and they do a lot of the work, but it's no slight to the other ones. It's just, they've got either careers going, they might have children at different times. And so, but we've had some amazing people part of it. Chris Jones being the last new person that we've kind of brought in, and he's just phenomenal. Getting to know him a little bit more has been a lot of fun. But when we started the company, it was just because we were busy. Like, Tosh and I were busy through the roof with doing private lessons, and we just, I know everybody's probably heard the story, but we were sitting in my basement trying to figure out what's the smartest way to do this, and just came up with doing some winter training. And we started, we had a couple of tournaments at that time that we'd take kids down the States, and, it's blossomed to the point where it is now. I mean, we'd head down there for 24 tournaments, throughout the winter, when you add them all with all of our age groups now, 12 to, or I guess 13U to 19U. And it's not to, it just shows that the need was there, and we came at the right time. And there's been other programs go and do great things as well. But I'm really proud of it, because we've got such a good instructor base, and we've gone through a lot of the steps, and we've made some mistakes, and we've made, we've learned from them. And every year we try to improve the program to, I guess, like you said, Hilly, some of the things you think we've put a lot of kids in colleges, and we have, but not just us. It's not without their incredibly hard work, and in some cases other coaches that are working with those kids, so it's not just all twos, but there's so many things that happened with us and the program that makes it special that we didn't plan on. We would never have thought we were, be doing what we're doing today 7 years ago. But the nice thing about it is this family thing that's just taken off. It's the craziest thing. Like, people have these chat groups that they talk about. Like, there's the old ones that they haven't played in 2, 3, 4 years, and they still got their twos chat groups, and some of them are off playing college, and some of them are probably off working or in school, or and it was something that just grew, and it just got so, I don't know, it got bigger than us, right? I mean, when we started it, it was the Dean and Tosh show, because we were the name of it, and we were the brand, and we were this, and 222s now, and we say it all the time, we are no longer bigger than the brand. The brand is, kids show up at a 222s camp and they see Stacey Thompson doing, and oh my gosh, Stacey Thompson's here, and it doesn't have to be Dean or Tosh. There's an incredible crew of instructors, and the kids just want to be part of twos, because there is something a little special going on there. So really proud of it, and always some cool things happening in the future too. So never know, it could be out your way soon.
It's incredible, man. We talked a little bit about it before we jumped on with you, seeing what you're doing post-playing career, and to see how tight you and Tosh are, and you and Tosh and Deano and Donnie on the two side, but to see those friendships continue as teammates, to turn it into a passion within the game that's now giving back. The twos program is one of the best in the country for developing young athletes, and it's hats off to you guys and everyone on your staff. It's an amazing program, and if any of our listeners out there want to learn more about it, it's what are the social media, where can they learn more about?
Don't you just Google it now, 222's fast pitch? You Google it, it'll come right to your website, and I mean, it'll tell you a little bit about what we do and where we are. But in all honesty, if there was a kid from Newfoundland that wanted to come and try out, they can do that from Newfoundland. So there's not, you're not, just because you're not from Saskatchewan or Alberta or Manitoba, which is where we get a lot of our players from. Hopefully one day we'll be in different provinces as well. But even if we're not, nothing changes. There's nothing wrong with coming out to a tryout, and because everybody heads down to tournaments. It's almost like playing the old travel ball, right? Yeah. You might play on a team with 12 different guys from 12 different locations, but you all end up in the same spot. And when you get down to the States, you play together, right? So kind of a little bit the same way.
That's awesome. Maybe we can line up some 222s against the Ryan Boland's Avalon Wave and
absolutely. Well, we're kind of getting back over to the east side here in April. We head down to Georgia. So tomorrow we take off. We do Vegas and then Northern California, and then back again for a couple of weeks. Then we head to Northern California again, and then to Georgia. So
is Donnie going to Vegas?
Donnie's going to Vegas as long as he passes his test tomorrow.
He's going to be the most nervous person in Canada.
Oh yeah,
so just for our listeners who may not be Twos Talk listeners, Donnie Atkinson has been on a campaign for well over a year now to go to this Vegas trip, and I'm so happy for him, Donnie. I know you're listening to this. I couldn't be happier for you, buddy. So listen, pass the test, enjoy the trip. And that's a good way to segue into wrapping this thing up. Deano, tell us a little bit about the Twos Talk podcast. I love it. I've been a guest on it. Hilly might earn a spot there one day. But tell our listeners who may not be Twos Talk listeners yet about how your podcast came to be and the great stuff you guys are doing.
Well, it's our chicken farmer, Sean Colburn, a buddy of Tosh and mine. He's got some other buddies that were doing a podcast, and I think it was a hunting podcast. And I still remember the call. I was sitting at my kitchen table, and he's like, "Hey, I got this great idea. You and Tosh should do a podcast." And I'm like, "That's not a good idea, but like, that's like, have you heard me talk? Like, I'm not, you know, why would I want to be on something that people need to listen to me, right?" So I was like, not going to be not something I do. So then he obviously got in Tosh's ear, and then Tosh is talking, "Hey, did you hear from Colburn? Yeah, he wants us to do a podcast." And I'm like, "There's no way, dude. Like, what are we thinking?" And I think it might have been the COVID, you know, how you get the foggy head when you're in that COVID thing, you're in your house for 3 weeks. And I think that maybe is why it happened, because I just got weak and I said, "Okay, fine, let's just do it. Whatever, let's do it." So we ended up doing it. And it's been a lot of fun. I got to say, it's not without a lot of hard work, because you guys know how it is to get podcasts together, you know, whenever you guys do it, right? You were smart. We did it every Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Thinking it's Tuesday, you know, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Hey, it's clever. It's clever until you have to do it.
Until you have to do it 83 times in the net, you know, like, so it's funny because we were saying, I think Donnie says, we're coming up on our 100th episode. And I'm like, really? Holy smokes. Like, okay, so we got to start thinking, like, who's this person you want to bring in on the 100th episode? Like, thinking we're at 98, 99. So we go through it. Donnie's like, and this was on the podcast, right? So I said, well, how many have we actually done? And he looks at it and he goes, 83. I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like you've went, hey, we're almost at the finish line and you've just left the starting. You know what I mean? Like, that's a long ways to 100. So we got a long ways to go, but we have found it really challenging, right? Especially when we get busy and, you know, we're back into the program, and, you know, I don't know how long it'll keep going, but as long as people still enjoy it and we're okay to, you know, we might have to cut it back and do once every 2 weeks or whatever. But every day we miss, there's somebody that'll text us and go, "Hey, how come you guys didn't do a new podcast today?" You know, and we'll put on like an awesome one, like Killer and Chaser, you know, the hockey one, and talking a little bit about the old days, them playing hockey and ball, and that, you know, that was a pretty good one. So we've done that one a few times. And another guy you guys should honestly get is Peter Labardius.
Yeah, I love those episodes on yours, man.
You guys, he's the most passionate dude you'll ever meet, and he would spin, like, whatever spin you want to do on your podcast, he would be amazing to do it, because he's one day he said he was going to interview us, so we got to do that one day, you know, and we'll spin it where he comes in and does it, because obviously he does it for a living. So it would be a little more professional than us doing it anyways. But we've had some great guests, so we'll keep rolling with it. But it's been a lot of fun, and just like you guys.
We can tell all our listeners on here, I guess, tell them to Google it, will we?
Google it. Just Google it, man.
No, it's a great podcast. Tues Talk on all the platforms.
Yeah.
It's great what you guys do. You have a lot of fun on there. The dynamic between you three is fantastic. And, you know, you're looking at a potential 100th episode guest right there, Deano, with old Hilly.
Yeah. It's not even we're not even joking. We've been talking about having you guys both on at the same time would even be fun, but, you know, for Hilly's ego, if he needs to come by himself first, and then we get you guys like maybe 120th together, that would work too.
All right, Hilly, you got 17 weeks to prepare, bud.
Deano, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, Deano, thanks, buddy, for doing this. It's been we've been looking forward to this for a long time, talking about it for a long time. You're a hero for both mine and Hilly, one of the best teammates, all-around competitors that we've had a chance to play with, and knew that getting you on here was going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for doing it, buddy.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to even go back over some of these things. It's been great. Next time I get that text or that 17-man FaceTime, I'm in.
FaceTime.
Yeah, I'll definitely pick up.
It's worth your while.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks, fellas.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, Deano. Love the stories, buddy. Could listen to you all night. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Well, Hilly, buddy, that was a special one. And we got Lucas and Nick here. A little bit of rum ragged to take us out.
Ladies man, but I'm a man now. For courting 6 girls all at once, they use me. My mother said it was not enough. sure it's all so very